Disclaimer. This podcast features a conversation between two individuals regarding assistive technology. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed during this episode belong solely to the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of their respective employers. Furthermore, this discussion is for informational purposes only.
Hi, welcome to today's Assistive Technology Today podcast. I'm your host, Vinny L, and today we have a special guest, an SLP, Nicole Zenn Coonin, and she is going to speak to us today about what she does and her background. But just before we get started, I just want to introduce myself a little bit. I've been an assistive technology specialist and AT consultant for the last 24 years. I work for a company called Enabling Devices. And this year we celebrate 50 years in the business of helping people in the special needs community. We serve birth to geriatrics, and we've been around, like I said, 50 years, a long time. Some of you who are watching the show may have heard of us, and some of you may not. So anyway, with that said, this is my own podcast. The company I work for is very supportive, and they are supporting the channel to help spread the word about assistive technology and all the great things that are out there. So without further ado, Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Vinny. Thanks so much for having me.
So Nicole, just for the viewers, just give us a brief rundown of what your background is and what you're currently doing.
Sure. Little bit about my background is I am an SLP by trade. Went to grad school locally at Seton Hall. After graduating, I worked in a variety of different positions in the field, in private practice, in schools, in a clinic. I worked for a long time with children on the spectrum, using some kind of touch AAC for the most part. We'll touch on that more later, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got into oral rehab, where I worked for about 4 years with the deaf and hard of hearing population, which I also really loved, and got involved with some assistive tech there, but more in terms of hearing and hearing aids, and those devices that you might see in schools. Then I pivoted into a sales position at Control Bionics, where I'm a consultant, working with SLPs and OTs mostly, finding AAC solutions with our devices here at Control Bionics. And I know you and I have collaborated a few times on some patients, kind of blending both, our hardware and your hardware. So
Right.
It's been awesome.
So you've been doing this a few years.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a pretty diverse background, as an SLP. You've been on pretty much many of the spectrums that job entails, so which is great because that gives you a lot of knowledge. And like you said, you and I have collaborated on, trying to find with enabling devices, some switches and some things that would complement, what Control Bionics has to give the user, some more independence, freedom, and quality of life. So it's always, it's always rewarding when you can make a difference in someone's life and you could see, what you've done to really help them. And it's definitely a rewarding, feeling. And I'm sure you share that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So with that said, Nicole, the whole premise of the podcast is basically to bring awareness to what assistive technology is and what technology is available, because as a therapist, you have a caseload and you're busy, and myself, I have my own caseload of a different type, not so much with patients, but you kind of get in the tunnel vision there. You stick to you have your daily grind. So unless you have a lot of free time, you don't have time to like explore what other things are, unless you go to like ASHA or ATIA, and you get to see some stuff. But I know a lot of times, as I've talked to other therapists, when you're at these shows, a lot of times you're doing seminars and things. So you don't have a lot of time to walk the floor to see what's new and great. So the podcast, part of the, premise is to basically bring all that stuff here on the podcast, get different people from all different parts of industry to share this stuff and to basically help educate people and make their awareness. So, obviously we know you've been a speech pathologist for quite a long time, and one of the things that, we wanted to touch on is, um, with technology changes, have you seen, some big changes in the last few years as far as, what's available with like AI, which is a big thing everybody talks about. You've seen, even with Control Bionics, a lot of the stuff that wasn't even available 5 years ago.
Yeah, there's been certainly so many changes in the industry, some just led by AI,
Hmm.
huge change for us. Um, we've been also we're pioneering at EMG for our switches and also using that in some other modalities now. So there's big changes there with the technology and also the availability
Can
to
you, for
use
our,
it.
for the layman or somebody who doesn't know, can you just explain what EMG is?
Yeah, so EMG is electromyography, and what Control Bionics has is an EMG switch. So it can be utilized on pretty much any part of the body where there's a muscle that has voluntary contraction, and it picks up on even the smallest minimal movements.
Wow.
So that's really one space that we've been in for a long time, and we're continuing to grow that in other ways, branching into other rehab fields and sports medicine with it,
Hmm.
in addition to using it in AAC. So that's one way that we're really growing and changing. I think speech software is going to be changing a lot with AI.
Hmm.
Um, there's just a lot of exciting things on the
That's
horizon.
that's nice to hear that Control Bionics is thinking outside the box. They're able to implement that technology, which would be helpful for somebody with a disability or somebody who's maybe rehabbing and they have paralysis and they're, working through that, a stroke patient. Um,
Exactly.
you know, the whole the most amazing thing is to give them the ability or the access, because I just want to touch quickly on a story that always rings true to me, and one of the reasons why I love doing what I'm doing.
Hmm.
Years ago, when I first started out for enabling devices, I had an OT who actually reached out to me, and she had a little boy that she had seen as a patient, and he unfortunately was in a car accident. He was sitting in the front of a vehicle where he shouldn't have been in, and the airbags deployed, and he actually broke his neck. And then he was basically nonverbal. And a lot of people were giving up on this kid, saying, he's never going to be right, that, he's got brain damage. And she said, no, I see something in him, but I have no way to give him access to basically see if he's got any communication.
Hmm.
And, Control Bionics didn't have this technology that they had. This is going back, well, like over 15 years ago. So
Hmm.
we were working, Dr. Kaner, who's the founder of Enabling Devices, him and my electronics engineer, Peter, they were working on this iBlink switch. And I was telling this therapist, I said, listen, can he move his eyes? And she's like, yeah, he can blink his eyes. I can get, if I ask him a question, he can blink his eyes. So I said, it's a prototype. I said, it's not finished yet, but I want to get one out to you. So I went to Dr. Kinner. I said, can we give this OT this device? And he's like, absolutely. So we got it out to her. within within a few days, she had connected it to one of our light tech communicators, and he was able to start answering questions. And, to make a long story short, this changed this boy's life forever. He was able to go through school, graduate high school, move on to more advanced technology, and go to college.
Wow.
Now, if this therapist, you guys, I always say the therapists are like the unsung angels. Without your determination, but he needed the tool, he needed the access, and that's what's awesome about what we do with all this technology. That if you give somebody the tools, you'd be amazed at what the human perseverance can do. What can be accomplished. So again, it's an exciting time to be an assistive tech, and like you said, with communication, I've I've been taught, had a few people. I had one Israel Montano from Mr. Speechy. he's got a software that helps the therapist with their workload as far as like their paperwork and getting data. And that's the other thing. Do you feel that that's changed a lot? Like, do you have a lot more information at your fingertips, whereas years ago it was more intensive for you to correlate that data and basically, get some feedback out of it.
Yeah, I think that's changed a lot too, with different feedback devices that are in place and a lot of new tech that helps with the paperwork load. We're seeing a lot of change there as well.
Right, right. What have you seen the most significant in the last few years? Like what has been the most, you know, I want to say earth shattering, but I mean, we were talking about the iPad, how when that came out, it was great. And it's still great. And, it
Mhm.
opened the doors to a lot of things and made things very accessible. But it was always slow and steady. And I always say this, slow and steady. It wasn't, nothing came out earth shattering, but, and we talk about AI, things have jumped so much.
Yeah.
Does anything stand out in your mind aside, like I said, from AI, anything that really has made
Mhm.
like such a huge difference in your profession, like what you deal with on a day-to-day basis? That's been a huge help.
I'm gonna say, well, I was gonna say the Neuralink is something
Hmm.
that has been like a huge change, but that hasn't affected us in our day to day at all. It's just a huge leap in technology.
Can you
Something
talk? Yeah, can you
will
talk a little bit?
definitely, yeah, it will
Yeah,
definitely change the future of, I think, how people might communicate in the future. That's the Neuralink is what Elon Musk is pioneering.
mm.
It's like a brain implant to uh, like a computer brain interface.
Right,
But it's really still so far away from any widespread use, like
right,
normally 10 to 25 years away from anything. Um, but that's been a huge change
right,
for us, I think, in this kind of biotech
right.
AT type of space.
Hmm.
Um, and another huge change too is I think things like podcasts, YouTube, things like that, where word is just spreading about
Right,
different tools quicker than ever before. I know Control Bionics is a fairly new company compared to some of the other AAC companies that have been around a longer time, Tobii and
right,
PRC.
right,
Um, and that I think like the use of social media has really affected our sort of like our word and our ability to get out, which has been
right.
exciting for
That's, it's good that you touched on that because, like I said, one of the premise, so many people on LinkedIn that, we've connected through there and said, hey, why don't you do a podcast? There's really no great podcast on assistive tech. And I'm like we said, if you don't go to shows or you're busy doing your work, like where do you get that extra information unless you're sitting on the web doing searching? But everybody has a phone. We all have social media now. I mean, today we were like, how could we live without it? 10, 15 years ago, you could have done fine without it. But today it's like you have to have it. Just like your calendar on your phone. We'd never be able to do anything without that. We live by the
no.
calendar. So I said, this is a great avenue, like you said, to get the information out, and it's digestible. It's easy to digest. People can be sitting having a cup of coffee. They have 10 minutes.
Right.
That 10 minutes can expose them to something that they wouldn't have known about. So it's great. But what I wanted to do, Nicole, is if you could touch a little bit more on, like you said, some of the products that Control Bionics is doing, like where you've been implementing them, some of the new switches, because now that's giving, more access to your patients so they can use software to, AAC software.
Yeah. Um, so like I mentioned before, we have the EMG switch. Sorry, my dog had stood down. Um, always a little visitor here. Um, we have the EMG switch, which works by sensing the muscle making a
Right.
contraction, and then there's also the spatial switch, which is the same switch. It just has two different modes to work, and
Hmm.
that is where it detects motion in space. Um, can be super, super small motions too.
Right.
It's really incredible technology. We're able to leverage it with a lot of different patients. People who are presenting as locked in are able to use technology, which is pretty amazing. We have all different stages of ALS users.
Right.
That's a really big population we serve. And similar to the eye blink story you mentioned, we also can use our EMG on eye blinks or eye movements.
Wow.
So that's like a newer technology that we've been able to use
Right.
too, which is really life-changing for a lot of our users.
Does Control Bionics have any like eye gaze technology right now, or are they mostly sticking with the neuromuscular?
We do use eye gaze technology. We don't make it in-house.
Hmm.
So we have some partners that we
Right.
can use what we call our trilogy with the eye gaze. So
Hmm.
that's using the what we consider the three modes of communication in one unit. So touch, eye gaze, and the neuronode or a switch all work together. And you can use them separately, but
Right.
basically you're looking at what you want with your eyes, and instead of dwelling, you make your switch with your body, and it eliminates a lot of fatigue and really increases the speed and efficacy that someone
Right.
can communicate.
Yeah, because I know some people, even if they have movement, sometimes they, like you said, they fatigue out really quickly. So sometimes the mechanical switches are kind of hard. They have good days and bad days where they can
Yeah.
use them. But now with these switches, do they interface with most? Like, what are you using for your AAC? Like, are you using like Dynavox, or are you using other types like like Princuromic or Saltillo or different things?
So the hardware itself is usually a Windows Surface Pro with Grid 3 software. We also partner with Smartbox, so we sometimes can use their hardware as well.
Hmm.
Um, And I did mention that with our trilogy, we have the eye gaze with the neuronode. But one of our clients I know has used the eye gaze with a manual switch
Hmm.
that we work together with, and also a head switch in another case.
Right.
So it's very adaptable. We can partner with any typical switch can be input in or a Bluetooth switch, like our NeuroNode is Bluetooth. So it's really flexible in that way.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, one of the mottos that we always had is don't tell me what you can't do, tell me what you can do. And then, we'll work around that and say, like you said, with all this,
Mhm.
really sensitive, being able to pick up neuromuscular activity, you've opened the doors to some people that normally wouldn't even have the ability to communicate, which is, again, if you don't need it, you don't really understand like how amazing that is or how important that is to give somebody back that freedom or quality of life that we take for granted every day. And I try not to, just from doing this for so many years. Like I said, it's so amazing to see the technology that's out there.
I
I just
love the
want,
quote you just said. Don't tell me what you can't do. Like that resonates
yeah,
with what we do
that
so much.
was that was Dr. Kaner's philosophy motto. He used to say, don't tell me what you can't do. Show me or tell me what you can do. And then he's like, from there, we work backwards. We figure out, okay, they can do this. Well, how can we give them access to do that? I mean,
Yeah,
that's how the catalog, it started out with a one-page flyer. I mean, most of the products were designed out of, they always say the necessity is the mother of invention, and it is. And, here we are in 2026. You think we'd have everything figured out and have everything possible? We don't, and it's still every day I'm learning, and there's every this is not dealing with people is not a cookie cutter type business. There's no one size fits all. You have general stuff that'll work for a lot of people, depending if they
hmm
have cerebral palsy, or
right,
they have MS, or they have something else that stuff that'll be general use. But there's always going to be the need for that specialized thing, like what your company brings.
right,
um, it's definitely, it's user specific in a lot of places.
right. Yeah, I have so many, SLPs or OTs or any parent who will say, "Oh, they can't move their arms, they can't move their legs. We can't use your switch," and I'm always like, let's just try. Let's see
Hmm.
what it shows.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, like it works out.
I mean, I come across that as well. Sometimes people say, I don't know. And I said, sometimes the only way to find out, I can't give you a definite answer is to trial and error.
Right.
If you don't try, you don't know. And then, sometimes I've seen kids like play with toys that, they think they wouldn't, once they realize there's that cause and effect, it's so motivating to them that they realize that they were able to do that. And then they focus all their effort and it's amazing to see that connection that they make. And it's like, oh, I can do this. It kind of
Hmm.
reinvigorates them, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to look back here I'm trying to keep us on with some of the topics and things that we were
Yeah.
trying to um is there anything else that you wanted to share with us that was something that you thought was worth mentioning to people to that we didn't cover?
Um, I don't think so particularly.
Now, well, one thing we didn't really talk about. So I know you've been pretty diverse in as far as your journey as an SLP. What is the population you're mostly dealing with? What is the age groups? Or is it diverse? Are you dealing with birth to like early intervention to geriatrics?
Yeah, we see right now we're seeing some early intervention. But mostly the bulk that we treat is like school age through like a geriatric age.
Hmm.
So I would say mostly like 5 to up there
Up,
in age.
up to school
But
age.
sometimes we see some like 2, 3, 4-year-olds.
Right. Now you're not working in the schools or particularly you're an outside. You'll come in if SLP says, "Hey, I have a case that I need XYZ, can your products help us out?" Or you come in and consult for them. That's pretty much what
Exactly.
you're
So we'll
doing.
come in and we'll consult.
Do
We'll
like an
try out a few
assessment.
things. Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
No, that's
Exactly.
great. That's great. And I know you said Control Bionics is fairly new. I mean, I've known about them for many years, so they're new, but they're not that new. Are they just in the United States, or do they branch out into other countries, or is mostly just something in the U.S. that they support?
We actually are in some other countries. We have a big presence in Australia and Japan.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm. So are there is all are in the United States, are all 50 states covered? Do they have representatives in all 50 states or
We have
um,
regional
regional representatives?
representatives, so everyone is served by a consultant. Um, yeah, and I was just going to add on that we're actually an Australian company.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, we're headquartered here in Ohio, but it
okay.
is actually an Australian company.
With that said, so I know like with the Dynavoxes and some of the other advanced communicators, they're usually funded by insurance. Now, your stuff sounds like it's, to me, even though I'm a tech guy, I know it's pretty advanced. It's pretty sophisticated stuff. So these switches usually covered by insurance, or do people pay out of pocket for these things? Just, letting viewers know.
Yeah, no, we have both. We are covered by insurance. The NeuroNode actually has its own HCPCS code, so funding is pretty seamless. We have a funding team also who pretty much takes care of
They do the paperwork for
all
that?
the all
Yeah.
the the messy paperwork and phone
Right,
calls
right.
with insurance and doctors' offices.
Right.
We have Medicare and Medicaid funding in all 50 states. So um, and we take a lot of the commercial plans as well.
Wow, that's great. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming you guys do stuff with the veterans and all that.
Yep. Yep. A lot of we have a lot of VA patients and a lot of connections there. So
Yeah,
we um we do get to serve that population as well.
right. No, that's great. I mean, like I said, the technology is amazing, and just like I said, some people may have not even heard, of Control Bionics and all the really neat stuff that you guys, offer. And one, we'll put some links in the show notes so anybody wants to check out Control Bionics and see all the great stuff that Nicole has brought to our attention, just to make everybody aware of what's available out there. I'll have those in the description below. So I think we're probably going to wrap it up, Nicole. I appreciate you for being a guest on the podcast. Thank you for sharing all this great information with us, and I hope the viewers and listeners, if this was helpful to you, we always say the old saying, like and subscribe and share. If the podcast was helpful, share it with a friend, share it with a colleague. They may find some benefit from this, and we hope that's our goal, and we hope that we achieve that goal for you all.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Vinny. And I think something really brief that you said before, with the right tools and the right support, there's so much potential that exists for AAC and assistive tech users. So I really appreciate you having me on, and I really appreciate your new podcast, and I'm excited to check it out.
Thanks. And as we wrap this up, I just want to, like I said, this is my own personal podcast, but my company does help support what I do. They feel it's strongly that we get the information out to people. So if anybody checks out enablingdevices.com and you find some of the products useful, they have given me a AT Today 26 coupon code for 10% off one-time purchase. So if you stop by the website and check out the products, save yourself 10% on your first purchase. That could be helpful. Again, thanks for Nicole for being the guest today. And I'm your host, Vinny L, and this has been Assistive Technology Today Podcast. And we'll see you all on the next podcast. Take care now.